Okay, thanks, Kenton. It was a normal night until it wasn't. That's how one Columbia woman describes the evening she says she was sexually assaulted in 2017. Now, after nearly 4 years, she's finally able to share her story. In this KLB8 exclusive, I'll tell you how she hopes it helps other survivors. And I'll break down why it took 4 years for a verdict.
I think it's important for women to be heard and for all victims of sexual violence to be heard.
Mary DENSON is finally getting her chance to be heard.
And it's not going to change until we continue to face it.
She says a friend sexually assaulted her nearly 4 years ago after a local concert.
Derek came in and got on top of me and pinned me down and assaulted me. And later, Derek followed me out to the porch and got on top of me and assaulted me again.
And she says she wasn't the only one.
What motivates you to share your story?
It's just the right thing to do. This is the simplest answer.
Jeannine Anderson now lives in Colorado. She says the same man assaulted her that night too.
Some people think that survivors will make up this story like that comes out of thin air. And it's just statistically not true.
According to court documents, prosecutors charged Derek Tarwater with 2 counts of sodomy, saying he, quote, knowingly had deviant sexual intercourse with the victims by the use of forcible compulsion. The probable cause statement says in one incident, Tarwater picked up one of the victims over his shoulder and took her into a back of a van where he assaulted her. The statement says she kept telling him no and to stop and hit him in the face to eventually get away.
So what was next for you and the other victim?
The next morning we talked and we agreed to go to the ER.
Tarwater bonded out of jail about a week after his arrest.
He was free. He was able to go about his life.
Which in turn delayed the process.
By the time they met me, rightfully so, they were frustrated at how long it had taken to get through the justice system.
Assistant Boone County Prosecutor Jessica Caldera says suspects out on bond is just one thing that can slow down a case.
So he was always a lower priority as far as getting our jury trial than someone who was in custody. But once 4 years is inexcusable.
Caldera says crime lab testing can also cause delays.
We see TV shows all the time where they get lab results right away or within hours. And in Missouri, we only have a handful of crime labs. So it can take a year or more just to get DNA results back.
It wasn't until this past spring that the case went to trial.
The system is very slow. It's quite flawed. It favors criminals, not victims in any way.
A quick and expedient trial for whom? Definitely not for me and Jeannine.
4 years of being on edge.
Every day I was checking over my shoulder constantly. It was constantly a state of peril.
These aren't decisions that women just make willy-nilly or are off the cuff. They think about it. They think about whether it's something they could do.
Finally, the jury came back with a verdict.
What was it like for you when you heard the guilty verdict?
I can't even barely describe it. I know I started weeping immediately.
I felt like I lost 50 pounds in an instant. All of this pressure that had been on me for so long just vanished.
4 years waiting for justice.
The fact that 12 Missourians heard all of the evidence and were willing to believe something hard to believe, it meant everything. And I would do it again. I would absolutely do it again.
4 years waiting to be heard.
What's next for you?
Well, I have enrolled in a victims advocacy training certificate course, actually. Ultimately, I really hope someday I get to sit with other women in court and help them have their day the way that I got mine.
Working as an advocate for victims in Colorado. Derek Tarwater received the minimum sentence, 5 years, for each count, totaling 10 years in prison. A judge denied his motion for a new trial. I spoke with Tarwater's attorney, who says he plans on filing an appeal and argues the judge did not allow important evidence into the case. Right now on KLMU.com, you'll find links to resources for victims of sexual assault. Just look for this story on our website.